Hell yeah! What's up, everybody? Oh my goodness, good God Almighty. Listen to that. If you don't know who that is, I don't know what to do for you for a metalhead. That's a very distinct signature guitar sound right there. It also happens to be my band pick of the week for this MetalHead Michael episode. I'll be getting more into this band later on. Definitely hope to hear more from these guys in the future. Chunk it out. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of MetalHead Michael. It's a Saturday night. Happy Saturday. Best time for a MetalHead Michael episode. Watching a NASCAR race, one of the very few times that NASCAR's on Saturday nights. I remember when NASCAR used to be on like just about every Saturday night, for goodness sakes. But yeah, I'm enjoying my Saturday night for sure. Getting a lot of homework done. I've been in class. Class opened up on Monday for summer school too. Been busy, busier than you can believe, but I like it that way. Wouldn't have it any other way. Like I said, welcome to another episode of MetalHead Michael. Let me just get things started because we've got a lot to cover, folks. I'm talking about back to the beginning, the Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne final farewell, the very, very final farewell tour, farewell concert show. It's a one and done, one-off that he's going to do just to say goodbye to everybody. And I think there's probably a lot of obviously there's a lot of variables and a lot of reasons for that. But back to the beginning with Black Sabbath is really getting billed as the music event of 2025. And let me just tell you, folks, this is playing out not to be just talk and sham and glitz and glimmer and a marquee. This is really gearing up to be the concert of the year, the music event of 2025, and I would wager to say that it's going to be the concert event that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. There's so many awesome bands booked, and so much so is this. First of all, it's sold out. It's in the UK, right? It's in I think it's in Birmingham where Black Sabbath got its start at, or else all the original members grew up. I know Ozzy's from Birmingham, and they sold out the show. Sharon and Ozzy did when they decided to put this thing together and sell tickets. So they developed this pay-per-view option that you could buy. Now, let me just tell you, rarely do I ever drop money for pay-per-view. Like, I think I might have done that for Ronda Rousey's first, title belt. I think I did that for Diaz and McGregor, their very first fight, stuff like that. I'll put a little money down and we'll watch it. I think I did some other like fights or concerts or so forth. But this is an exception. This is an exception, folks. And there's so many different aspects and factors that play into that being an exception. One, it's Black Sabbath, of course, the Glooms of Doom. These guys invented doom metal, invented heavy metal as far as I'm concerned. Every heavy metal band, thrash band, whatever that you can think of out there has attribution to Black Sabbath, without question. It's just a gimme. It's a staple. It's a factor. It's a ground level foundational principle in heavy metal music. When you talk heavy metal music, you gotta talk about Black Sabbath for sure. So that's first and foremost of which, and secondly, it's the original band members getting back together, right? Now think about this. This is going to be next Saturday. All right, I forgot. Be sure I want to mention next Saturday, July 5th. So all of the July 4th celebrations and TV events are going to come and go. this Saturday, July 5th is going to be left open basically for like, your whatever markets that you're going to fill for that weekend. And it's a holiday weekend to boot. So you cannot beat this. You cannot beat. There's no reason for you as a metalhead not to experience this in some kind of way. Whether you're going to be actually there in England to experience it for one of the sold out tickets that you were fortunate enough to get. And by the way, save that ticket stub if you did get that ticket stub. Or if you're fortunate enough to have a little bit of extra money to pay the pay-per-view price, which is only $30, mind you. You can't beat that. There's another fee you can get. I think you can pay like $60 and get a commemorative ticket and T-shirt. I don't know about the ticket, maybe the T-shirt for sure. But there's no excuse for you not to watch this next Saturday. It's a holiday weekend. It's Black Sabbath. It's a heavy metal celebration. It's heavy metal history for sure. And you just absolutely don't want to miss this. I have already laid down my $30 for the pay-per-view aspect of things. I'm trying to get my web browser to come through on any of my smart TVs that I have in my apartment. Anybody want to offer some advice on how to do that? I'm open to it because right now I'm looking at watching it on my computer screen, which I don't want to do. I'd like to have it blaring uncontrollably on my TV and waking up all the freaking neighbors. Now check this out. This is another reason why this is such an incredibly awesome opportunity for metalheads. These are the bands. These are the bands that are going to play. These are the bands and the people that are scheduled and slated and already booked for this show. This is the main stage leading up to just the main stage leading up to Black Sabbath. We have Rival Sons, Mastodon, Anthrax, Lamb of God, Alice in Chains, Hailstorm, Gojira, Pantera, Slayer, and Metallica. After Metallica, of course, will be the original Black Sabbath with Bill Ward, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and of course the great Ozzy Osbourne, the original members of Black Sabbath, doing an incredible Black Sabbath set. Now that, in and of itself, is enough to lay down $30 for a pay-per-view, or to go over to your friend's house and crash. And by the way, listen, if you're one of those people who's going to go over to a friend's house who's paid $30, at least bring a case of beer. Be kind, be nice, be thankful, be grateful. So leading up to that main stage, check this out. Additional performances throughout the day will feature Tom Morello, Billy Corgan, David Draymond, Duff McKagan, Fred Durst, Lizzie Hale, Jake E. Lee, Jonathan Davis, KK Downing, Mike Borden, Papa Emeritus from Ghost, Rudy Sarzo, Sammy Hagar, Slash, Sleep Token, Wolfgang Van Halen, Steven Tyler, Soundgarden, Chad Smith, Vernon Reed, Whitfield Crane, and David Ellefson. Those are all performances of different sorts that will lead up to the main stage. I mean, you cannot beat that. Oh, by the way, there was just a big, huge crash at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I'm watching this live as it took out half the field. It looks like major crash. Anywho, I digress. Those band members of different bands that I just list will do individual performances and so forth. There'll be like a mix and mash, a mish and a mash type of performances that will just build the foundation for the main stage for all those other bands that I mentioned that'll lead up to Black Sabbath. It starts at 10 a.m. in the morning, folks. I mean, think about that. It's a festival, is what it is. It's a Black Sabbath freaking festival. It takes me back to the Ozfest days, which I started going to in 1998 and continued to go to up until basically they phased it out on a festival type of a basis. But on a grand touring type of a basis. I know in the latter years they did one and dones, but this really takes me back to those Ozfest days when it was grit and grime and just nastiness out in the open field, the muddy fields, the mosh pits, the sweat. Oh man, I miss those days, folks. I miss those days. I think my Ozfest history was 12 years. if I'm not mistaken. And then I had maybe 7 or 8 years of Mayhem Festival. And then I had a couple of years of whatever festival came after that. Went to the Lincoln Parks, Project Revolutions. But Ozfest, I think, holds the record for as many times as I've been to festivals and so forth. But takes me back to that for sure. It's going to be a great day for barbecuing by the pool. If you can stream it to your outside TV. Oh my gosh, it's just going to be an amazing, amazing day next Saturday, July 5th. Back to the beginning. The host of the show, check this out. The MC will be Jason Momoa of Aquaman fame and Game of Thrones fame. I think he was in Game of Thrones. Yeah, he was in Game of Thrones. So that's going to be pretty cool. Just the same. There's so many reasons. There's so many reasons to attend this, either virtually or in person, that you should. There's no excuses for you not to, folks. There really is no excuses for you not to whatsoever. It's back to the beginning with Black Sabbath. Back to the beginning.com. Okay, my dog's going off. I don't know why. Lizzie, please. I'm on the air right now. Do you mind? I'm recording, honey. Lizzie, named after Lizzie Hell. That's my little Chihuahua dog. Okay, thank you for being such a good guard dog, but please, quiet time, okay? Yeah, Daddy's doing an episode. Daddy's doing MetalHead Michael episode, honey. Okay? Go sleep or do what Chihuahuas do. Go chew on something. Anywho, there's no excuse for you not to attend this Black Sabbath concert, folks. And hey, if you want to come on over, bring a case of beer and crash with me all day long. I intend to get all of my homework done that Friday night, heading into the weekend for sure, because I just don't want to have anything else riding on my shoulders, anything else to do except watch Black Sabbath's final, very, very final, back to the beginning and farewell concert event. It is going to be absolutely, absolutely amazing. Okay, folks, let's get to this week's shameless plug. And for those of you who have been listening, you know that shameless plugs are products and services I believe in by people that I know personally. Welcome to Shameless Plug, folks. These are products and services, like I was stating before, that I believe in sincerely, and people that I know personally. And I give them a shameless plug as a result. For sure, you better believe I do. This week's shameless plug is Crabtree Family Moving, owned and operated by none other than Mr. Grayson Hale. I know Grayson pretty well. I highly recommend Crabtree Family Moving for all your moving needs. For anyone, and especially seniors, older adults, as they make the transition into a senior living community, which is the environment and in the capacity that I know Grayson. Grayson and I opened up a senior living community together in this area in 2018. And he is a true professional. I can guarantee you on MetalHead Michael's word that you are in good hands with Crabtree. Crabtree Family Moving, for sure, for all your moving needs. Not just for older adults, but especially for seniors. But they will handle all of your moving needs for whoever you are. All you got to do is give them a call, get a rate, get a price, reasonably affordable, without question, folks. Mr. Grayson Hill will take good care of you. You will know Grayson when he answers the phone, because he has a very deep voice. He's the deepest voice guy I know, for crying out loud. But you are in really good hands with Crabtree Family Moving. The number is 919-500-2013. That's 919-500-2013. They are located locally here in Raleigh. It's Grayson at CrabtreeFamilyMoving.com. Crabtree Family Moving is all one word. That's Grayson at CrabtreeFamilyMoving.com at 919-500-2013. 2013. Grayson Hale, he is your best relocation specialist in the area without question. You're in good hands with Crabtree Family Moving and Storage. That's this week's shameless plug, folks. All right, folks, moving right along with MetalHead Michael episode. Here is the answer to the previous heavy metal trivia question. Now, if you recall, the previous trivia question was, and I know it's been a while, but I get on here as much as I can, as often as I can. If I could do it every day, I would. But the answer, last MetalHead Michael episode's trivia question was, what was the first band to sign on Nothing Records, which was Trent Reznor's record company that he created? The first band to sign on Nothing Records was the one and only monster that he helped create, Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids. Not too difficult of a question, but if you're a true metalhead, you would have known that, right? So that was when he was signed to that label. And oh, by the way, there's a red flag on that NASCAR race for that huge heavy metal accident, as I like to call it. My gosh, took out half the field, and they have red flagged the race. Everybody's just sitting still right now trying to clean up the mess. But anywho, I digress again. That is the answer to the previous trivia question. That was when Marilyn Manson signed to the label and did his famous 1995-1996 Antichrist Superstar tour with none other than the Ozfest. If you recall, caused a huge controversy with that tour, and really sent that tour and Ozfest in itself with that controversy, as often as heavy metal controversies do, send it into the stratosphere. Because everywhere they would go, they would be banned, especially in the Midwest. They're like, no, we're not going to have Ozfest here because of Marilyn Manson, because of his Antichrist Superstar, album name and just what he represents and how disgusting he is and blah blah blah. Wherever that tour would go, they would try and ban Marilyn Manson, and he would play anyways. So it sent Ozfest kind of into the stratosphere. It reminds me of the 1998 tour when Linkin Park was supporting their hybrid. A little unknown band named Linkin Park was supporting their Hybrid Theory tour. Or album rather. That's just how remarkable it was for that year and for that touring. But yeah, that's the answer to the previous trivia question. Was none other than Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids. His new album sucks, by the way, as most of his recent, I won't say recent, and his stuff the last 10 years, for goodness sakes alive. I wish he would do something that sounded like Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids, that sounded like Portrait of an American Family, that sounded like Hollywood or Mechanical Animals or Antichrist Superstar. I wish he would do stuff like that some more. I don't know what he's trying for, but I don't know why. And with as much personal shit that he's had in his life, I don't know why people even go see him anymore. Really, I quit being a fan of him after Hollywood. And there was one album after that, the Babble Babble Bitch Rebel Party album, that I kind of got into, but after that I was like, really, this is crap. It really is just crap. And his new album is horrible. It's god awful horrible. It's a part 1 as well, so hopefully there won't be a part 2. But that's anyways, I really digressed on that one. Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids was the answer to the previous trivia question. Moving right along to the band pick of the week. Oh my goodness gracious, did you hear that bumper music? That bumper music was incredible. Awesome. If you didn't recognize that, which you should have if you're a true metalhead, and a lot of my bumper music will be the band pick of the week. And I choose an instrumental version of it on purpose because I want to see how many true metalhead Michael fans there are out there, how many true metalheads there are out there who can recognize the music without necessarily the lyrics, right? Or not necessarily the signature sound of the lead singer. Excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of beer. I need a sip of beer. Man, that's good. It's the nectar of the gods. Anywho, so my band pick of the week, if you haven't noticed yet, is the Kerry King Band. Now that I mentioned when I was playing the bumper music and doing the intro, that you should have recognized that if you're a true metalhead, man, because that is signature Slayer sound. It truly is signature Slayer rhythm, hardcore guitar right there. Even of course lead in some aspects, but that is signature Kerry King, signature with that big, huge, thick, massive guitar that he has, that he plays with. Kerry King Band with the lead singer Mark, let's see if I can say this, Mark Osagueda from Death Angel. This guy, coupled and combined with Kerry King, it just produces a signature sound in and of themselves. This is one of the best bands to come out of 2024 into 2025. I have had the grateful opportunity to see them play with Lamb of God and Mastodon. They opened up for Lamb of God and Mastodon, and I'm not going to lie to you, like a third of the crowd left after Kerry King Band played, because they only came there to see Kerry King. So it's just an incredible band. I just hope that they're going to come out with more stuff. And I hope that Kerry King, I hope that he doesn't do like the Motley Crue thing, or, whatever trend, the Kiss thing, and go back to Slayer. And there's already talk that he's going to do that. In fact, Slayer's playing. Slayer was one of those bands that I mentioned that's playing at the Black Sabbath. I'll give him a pass for Black Sabbath farewell tour. Come on now. Yeah, I'll give him a pass for that, for getting back with Slayer. And Kerry King is apparently one of those other individual members who's going to do some stuff. Hopefully he'll have something with the Kerry King Band. I would like to see that on the Black Sabbath show. And if that happens, then I'm going to see it, because I paid the fee for that $30 small little fee to watch the show, which you all should be doing anyways. But yeah, Kerry King. The Kerry King Band is the band pick of the week, and if you have not yet bought this album or downloaded it or burned it or whatever it is that you do to get your music, I highly recommend it. And support, and if you like what you hear, support the band and buy a t-shirt. I have 2 t-shirts by Kerry King Band. One of them I bought off the internet, and one of them, of course, I bought at the tour that has all the tour dates listed on the back, which I always do. So that is my band pick of the week, the Kerry King Band. Kerry King of Slayer fame for sure, with lead singer of Dark Angel Mark Osagueda, who has already said that he has not left Death Angel. He is just simply the lead singer for the Kerry King Band. So no worries there. If you're a Death Angel fan like I am, no worries there. He has not left Death. He is still very much a part of Death Angel. He is just simply doing the Kerry King Band dually right now. So, and I'd like to see more music come out of Death Angel as well. But band pick of the week, Kerry King Band, the Kerry King Band. Download that new album right now. It's of the new album is of the same name of the band, the Kerry King. For sure. All right, folks, moving right along. We have a poll that we're going to review right now, which I thought was very interesting, because there was a lot of aspects that I agreed with it, and some aspects of it that I totally disagreed with. And the topic of the poll, let me see if I can find in my notes here. The topic of the poll was best metal albums of the 1980s. All right, let's get into this, folks. And this was a Loudwire poll, and I agree with this for the most part until you get into the latter part of the 80s, and they really screwed up. And let me go through this really quick here, folks, because I'm sure you'll agree if you're a true metalhead fan. So 1980s, metal album of the year was Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Now, of course, I have an attribution bias, or a bias attribution, however philosophically you want to, switch those words around, for Ronnie James Dio. So if there was an album every year in the 1980s for Ronnie James Dio, I would automatically pick it and be biased towards it. But Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, you really kind of got to give that to 1980. And I totally agree with that pick as well. 1981 was Ozzy Osbourne's Diary of a Madman. Again, I agree with that. That was Ozzy Osbourne's breakout. I think Blizzard of Oz was his breakout album in 1980, the same year as Heaven and Hell. But 81 Diary of a Madman really kind of established Ozzy and Sharon, as well as his manager, as a mainstay and a continuance of his experience with Black Sabbath. So I do agree with 1981 Diary of a Madman by Ozzy Osbourne. And yes, he was that was secondary, riding high on the electricity generated by a Blizzard of Oz. Diary of a Madman came right off the heels of that. So I agree with that. 1982, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, hands down. Agree with that. That is the British influence of heavy metal coming right over, landing solid, planting their British flag in America for sure. And they had just replaced Paul Di'Anno with their first album, and Number of the Beast was like this evil type of British heavy metal that nobody had ever heard before. Nobody had ever experienced anything like that before, for sure. And that was amazing. Just amazing little trip that we all took when they put on Number of the Beast, which is the first song on side one. It's like you hear that, "Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil sends the beast with wrath," and you are immersed in like this. You almost like turn your radio down on by default so your parents wouldn't hear, and then plugged your headphones in just so you could be a part of this little evil experience, from the UK that you didn't want anybody in your family to know about, but yet you would go blaring it when when you'd ever have your next party, your little get together, and you'd be like, "Hey, check these guys out, man! They're called Iron Maiden from England. This is called Number of the freaking Beast. It's about the devil and Satan and all that shit." It was a good album. It's definitely worthy of 1982's album of the year. 1983, you have got to, without question, 1983, you have got to give that to Holy Diver, Ronnie James Dio. This was this was his breakout album. It was unlike anything from Black Sabbath. It was like anything you had ever heard before. And Holy Diver is in a stratosphere, in an area all unto itself. And if Holy Diver doesn't appear on any list in heavy metal, then you are not a metalhead. You're crazy, is what you are. But 1983 Holy Diver takes 1983 for sure. So I definitely agree with that. Haven't deviated from their picks just yet, but you just wait until I get to the latter part of the 1980s. 1984 was Iron Maiden, Power Slave. Again, I agree with this completely. Power Slave was a continuance of Number of the Beast. Iron Maiden has this history of being like conceptual type of albums, and Power Slave was amazing. It was Egyptian type of based and relevance. The first song off of Power Slave, which is Aces High, if I'm not mistaken. It's just amazing stuff. You can't get any better than that. And they have the 2 minutes to midnight, to kill the unborn in the wound, and they had this Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. That's the song I was trying to think of off the top of my brain, which like took up like one side of the album. It was like an Ogata Davida kind of fame. And I think that they have the history of doing that in one take in the studio, if I'm not mistaken. They were just so many cool things that happened on this album. And I can look at this album cover. I remember just staring and gazing in awe at this album cover. I think the only better album cover than Power Slave was Somewhere in Time, where you just gaze into these album covers and you see something new every time you look at it. So 1984, Power Slave by Iron Maiden takes that slot. 1985 was Exodus, Bonded by Blood. Again, couldn't agree with that pick more as far as heavy metal goes. American heavy metal. Exodus should have been a part of the Big Five or Big Six if there was anything beyond a Big Four. And of course, they have the honor of having Gary Holt as the guitarist. Bonded by Blood. Another Exodus album I like is Pleasures in the Flesh. Not sure of the year. You all will have to help me out with that, but that's just something. That was I have the vinyl version of that. I have that burned. Pleasures of the Flesh. I also, and Bonded by Blood. Bonded by Blood was just an evil, scary album. And when you throw those two variables into heavy metal, and you're a teenager, you're naturally going to gravitate towards it, quite frankly. And if you tell us don't go listen to it, we're going to go out and buy it. And Bonded by Blood was one of those albums by Exodus, 1985. 1986, let's give it up for Master of Puppets by Metallica. If you're not going to put Metallica in that realm of things, and Master of Puppets of all albums in 1986, then, I don't know about you being a metalhead, quite frankly. That was the same year. However, I'll give you a little leniency, because if you're a true metalhead, that's the same year that Rain and Blood and Peace Sells But Who's Buying came out, right? But you still have to give it to Master of Puppets, I think, because it's more heavy, it's more thrashy, it's more chunky, and it's more. It's just more of an album, quite frankly, than Rain and Blood or Peace Sells. Now, Peace Sells has its own place in history, as does Rain and Blood, but I'll put it up against Master of Puppets and Peace Sells But Who's Buying, and I'll still put Master of Puppets out in front of Peace Sells. Although Peace Sells really gave it a run for its money over the years and has sustained as well. Sustained better than Rain and Blood, quite frankly, I do believe. So Master of Puppets goes to 1986. Now this is where I start to deviate from this list. 1987's poll winner was King Diamond, by an album called Abigail by King Diamond for 1987. I do not agree with this at all. I don't. King Diamond is part of the British influence of heavy metal that came over and influenced the West Coast, moved across the United States and so forth. Tracks on this album include Mansion and Darkness and The Family Ghost. Of course, if you know Abigail, I'm familiar with the album. I have the album, actually. I have the vinyl record of this, but I just don't agree with this at all. Some other notable picks that should have perhaps been over Abigail by King Diamond are Terrible Certainty by Creator. Come on now. Come on. When you take Creator, Terrible Certainty, come on, over King Diamond by Abigail, that's a sure thing. Taking Over by Overkill. Overkill was an incredible band from the East Coast. Incredible band. Taking Over, I remember Taking Over, folks. Taking Over, I think, sold better than King Diamond and Abigail did. And you had the Ultraviolence by Death Angel. Death Angel was one of those bands that never got the credit that it should have, quite frankly, in thrash metal. So those are some other notables. My pick for 1987, my personal pick over all those that I mentioned, as well as King Diamond, Abigail by King Diamond, is, of course, Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. Now, you cannot have a poll listing of metal, heavy metal, thrash, whatever albums, hard rock that you want to, without giving due diligence to Guns N' Roses' 1987 Appetite for Destruction. It is an iconic album that deserves a number one category without question. And there's so many different variables and factors that go into that. They've never been able to repeat that sound. It was a one and done. As they were making that album, the band was self-destructing. and it's just a piece of history. It's just an absolute iconic piece of history, and it came out in 1987 for that year, so it gets the 1987 for sure, as far as I'm concerned. 1988, the poll winner for 1988 was Queensryche Operation Mindcrime, and I'm going to tell you right now, folks, I think that is absolute crap. Queensryche is considered new metal, NU metal, and as far as like a poll for the top 10 new metal albums in 1980, they don't even get. Operation Mindcrime has its own place in history, but it's not on any poll list as far as I'm concerned. It's a conceptual album that has been overrated and oversold over the years, and I don't even like to hear anything off of Operation Mindcrime anymore. Maybe Jet City Woman, but that's about it, really. I don't agree with it. It's a top 1988 metal album for a number of reasons. Check this out. This is why. 1988 was. These are some honorable mentions that I came up with. Ram It Down by Judas Priest. If you're not going to choose Ram It Down by Judas Priest over Operation Mindcrime, then you don't even call yourself a metalhead as far as I'm concerned. No Rest for the Wicked by Ozzy Osbourne. That was 1988. That was an iconic album for a number of reasons. That was kind of a new beginning for Ozzy, and that definitely sounded a lot better than Operation Mindcrime. And South of Heaven by Slayer came out that year. South of Heaven, the iconic South of Heaven by Slayer, didn't win in this poll over Operation Mindcrime. Here's my pick for 1988. If you haven't figured it out already, it is, of course, And Justice for All by Metallica. Jason Newsted's bass, no matter the fact that they made him turn it down, is iconic in this album. The lyrics are iconic. The album is iconic. It was the peak of Metallica at the time, as far as I was concerned, before they hired, I think it was Bob Rock was his name, and decided to go a little bit more commercial with the Black Album. But And Justice for All, in my book, and as far as I'm concerned, if you're a metalhead, for 1988, gets the 1988 vote for sure. 1989, the last pick on this list, and I don't know where this came from. This came out of blue for me, was Morbid Angel by an album called Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel. Don't agree with that at all. Couldn't agree less with that. I'm not even really too familiar with Morbid Angel. I think I've heard maybe a song or two by them. I know I'm going to take a lot of slack for being a metalhead for that. I'm sorry, folks, but it is what it is. And for 1989, for so many reasons, so many other honorable mentions, and the one that I picked, Morbid Angel, does not get 1989 slot for best metal album of the year. Honorable mentions include Overkill, Years of Decay, Creator, Extreme Aggression. Creator, Extreme Aggression is an incredible album. Sepultura, Beneath the Remains, an incredible album by Sepultura for 1989. Wasp, The Headless Children, a little commercial, but I was still into that. And my pick for... by the way, my worst pick for 1989 is Savatage, Gutter Ballet. If y'all remember that one, that was horrible. Oh, God, just look that up on YouTube. It's absolutely horrible. That was my worst pick. We should have a worst pick list. Maybe I'll do that next MetalHead Michael episode. But look up Savatage, Gutter Ballet. That was a horrible, horrible album for 1989. But my pick for best album of 1989 is Practice What You Preach by Testament. Testament, again, should have been part of the Big Five, Big Six, if there was a Big Five or a Big Six. So I think we made it all the way up until 1987? Yeah, 1987, with the poll picks that I agreed with. But that latter half of that decade, I had to make some changes to my list, folks. And I hope you all did the same, because I don't agree with any of that at all. Let me just tell you. All right, those are the best metal albums of the 1980s. All right, folks, moving right along, I want to get into our next topic, which is Metallica rip-off songs. And I'm not talking about other bands ripping off Metallica songs. I'm talking about the possibility of Metallica and this has been in the news lately on Loudwire and all the heavy metal kind of social apps out there. I'm talking about Metallica, the possibility of Metallica having ripped off songs to on some of their older albums, some of the more commercially successful albums, to make that sound more popular. Okay, so there's been two prime examples of this. One of them is by a band called Dark Angel, and the other one is by a band called Excel. Now, let me just tell you, as a disclaimer of sorts, before I get into the depths of this, that there is a difference between doing like an outright rip-off of sorts of a sound and a riff, okay, and being influenced by a sound or a riff or a song or an album, okay? There's a clear distinction between the two. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of the legal aspects of it have been concerned in the past, there's a clear distinction, okay? If you're doing one, it's okay. It's acceptable. If you're doing the other, then it's clearly not, okay? And that's from a morality aspect, from a metalhead fan aspect, from a legal aspect, like I was mentioning, before. There's a clear distinction of being influenced and having as a band, soaking up like a sponge all of your influences and then kind of spitting out your own sound, right? Which is something like, for instance, like the Rolling Stones are famous for doing, right? You could tell the bluesy influence in all of their hits and so forth, and the country bluesy type of rock and roll stuff that comes out in their music, right? You'd be a fool not to be able to notice that. But for like a band like the Rolling Stones, which is a good example, you couldn't attribute, like a copyright infringement to them because they have such a unique sound. But yet you could still tell some of the bluesy influences. Let me give you a heavy metal example. All right, before we really get into this, a perfect heavy metal example is Avenged Sevenfold's "Hail to the King" album, or their version of like what Metallica calls the Black Album, which is what "Hail to the King" was. Really, it's it was like Metallica's version of the Black Album, quite frankly. And I'm not comparing those two together, but that was like what we needed at the time for heavy metal, right? So, Avenged Seven. Let's take Avenged Sevenfold's "Hail to the King" album. Doing Time sounds just like, you can tell the influence there from Guns N' Roses. You'd be a fool not to be able to notice that, right? There's a Guns N' Roses type of an influence there as far as riff goes, even like a lyrical aspect, a drum beat. This Means War is Metallica's influence of golly. Of course, I didn't write it down, so now I'm drawing a blank. Sad but true. I'm sorry, my mind. I had a little diarrhea of the brain there, a little brain freeze. Sad but true, and you'd be a fool not to be able to recognize the influence of Sad but True on This Means War. You'd be a fool not to be not to recognize Doing Time with Guns N' Roses. Let's see. Crazy, They're Out to Get Me. I mean, both of those songs off of GNR, Appetite for Destruction, is well into Doing Time. And you could just tell that influence, right? But that's an influence. That's not necessarily copying somebody. When you hear that album, you immediately think of, well, that's an influential sound and aspect of this particular group or this particular band, and I can tell that they were heavily influenced by that. But you don't think to yourself, well, they copied that. That's just an outright copy of that. Okay? So there's the reason that I mention that is that there's two aspects of my observation on Metallica ripping off songs, or rip-off songs, if you will, that I want to get into. One of them, like I said, was from Dark Angel's album or song called "Darkness Descends." Okay, and this song has caused controversy because it allegedly rips off Metallica rather allegedly ripped off this song with its drum beat to one. Okay, and let me just, before I play this, we all know one, so I'm not going to play one, where they go into the latter part of the song and they go into that drum beat, that double bass drum beat. So I'm only going to play "Darkness Descends" by Dark Angel. And as far as I'm concerned, before I even go into this is a ripoff. Okay, this is where they just took this drum riff, this drum riff, if you will, drum beat, and copied it and put it directly onto one. Okay, so having said that, let me play the song for you, and I'll play a lengthy version of it so you can get an idea from it. Okay, so here we go. This is Dark Angel with the song called "Darkness Descends," and this can be attributed to One by Metallica. All right, are you ready for this? Here we go. Okay, you get the picture there. All right. So, and there's plenty of evidence that the members of Dark Angel were friends with Metallica back in that day. There's conversations that have been documented where Jason Newsted was talking to members of Metallica, and he was even talking about this very song, right? This was in between Injustice and this was during Injustice for All recording. So to me, that's they just basically copied that and put it into one. All right. And if you listen very carefully, I know that's kind of a sketchy recording, but Dark Angel's recording, and I love Dark Angel, by the way. They're just an incredible metal band back in the day. If you could go into top, big 7s or big 8s or big 10s rather than just going on. Why do we only have a big 4? I never understood that. But anyway, I guess you had to stop at 4 just to make some historical context of things. But Dark Angel would definitely be on that list of a Big 10 for that era that never got Possessed, Dark Angel. Come on, these are bands that should be within that top 10 for sure. But anywho, I digress again. Once again, I digress. I have a tendency to do that. This drum beat is the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And that is an example of a ripoff, as far as I'm concerned. If Dark Angel wanted to take it to court against Metallica, I think they would have a case. But the members of Dark Angel have a long-standing history of saying that they're just simply not going to do that. They just don't want the trouble. They have a respect for Metallica, and they also, it's a weird kind of approach they take. They say, yes, they did rip us off. They did use that drum beat in one, but we see that as an honor to us for them doing that. So they don't want to take it beyond that, and they just want to be proud of their accomplishments and the fact that Metallica went on to basically used that drum beat and have a greater amount of success with it, quite frankly. But if you ask me, it's a ripoff. It's a copy. It's a direct copy, and they put it directly onto. There wasn't any innovative aspects of it, as far as I'm concerned, with Metallica. As much as I love Metallica, they ripped off that band. They ripped off that drum beat. The rest of the song, I wouldn't consider. I consider all of that individual kind of aspects of stuff, but that particular drum beat that finishes off the song was a copy and a ripoff, quite frankly. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is called by a band called Excel, and the song is called "Tapping into the Emotional Void." All right, here's the song, folks. Now, this is not Metallica. This is a band called Excel. All right, so you get the picture, folks, and that to me is an absolute total ripoff in and of itself, just the same. Even when he breaks into the lyrical aspects of that song, it sounds like Never Neverland, without question. You cannot possibly think that doesn't sound like Never Neverland. And to me, so Metallica in this aspect, they get 2 thumbs down. They went beyond just being merely influenced by this music, and they ripped them off, quite frankly. So it's not that my notches went down a little, more for Metallica, because I love Metallica. I grew up with Metallica as a forerunner of the Big Four, and I love everything about Metallica. I just love James and Lars and Kurt and Robert and Jason Newsted and Cliff Burton and Dave Mustaine and the whole history of Metallica. I live for Metallica. If it wasn't for Metallica, among other bands, I wouldn't have got into heavy metal. So I'm not necessarily taking anything away from them, from a passionate aspect. But in these 2 particular examples, you'd be crazy not to say that they didn't copy them. They clearly copied Dark Angel, and they clearly copied Excel's. So they get 2 thumbs down in that aspect, as far as I'm concerned. And I think a lot of metalheads, believe it or not, may have not necessarily heard of that kind of a controversy from Metallica, but I just am of the opinion that it goes beyond being like a band like the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin, who soaked up influences, bluesy type of influences, for both of those bands are examples, and produced their own sound. I just think Metallica stole this stuff and used it for their own advantage and their own commercial success. Quite frankly, call me crazy if you want to, but it's not the first time MetalHead Michael's been called crazy. Check out more of those samples, folks, and tell me what you think. I mean, don't take my word for it. Listen to them yourselves, and listen to them in length, and decide for yourself. But definitely let me know what you think. Let's get to this. Let's wrap things up with this week's brand new trivia question. And if you had listened very carefully to this episode of MetalHead Michael, you would have heard the answer to this week's trivia question. Here we go. This week's trivia question is, it's Ozzy Osbourne related, of course, because we're paying tribute to Black Sabbath this whole week. What was the first album that Zachary Wilde played guitar on with Ozzy Osbourne? What was the first album that Zachary Wilde played guitar on with Ozzy Osbourne? Again, in my opinion, if you don't know these questions, you're not a true metalhead fan, and that's why I come up with these trivia questions. But good luck, and thanks for listening, folks. There was a lot to cover. Let me know what you think, folks. I am on Blue Sky, and that was my only platform. I just recently joined X for MetalHead Michael. Look for the MetalHead Michael horns that you see in my videos, in my podcasts, right here on the screen that you see right now. Look for those horns in X when you type in MetalHead Michael, and you will find me. I'm on X now. I broadened out, if you will, to X. Of course, I'm on Blue Sky, YouTube channel, which I post all of my podcasts on my YouTube channel. That's my mainstay platform for my podcasts of MetalHead Michael, my episodes. And you can email me as well at metalheadmichael.com. So, yeah, Gmail. It's a Gmail account. So I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to the next episode, folks. Remember, always keep your horns raised. I'll see y'all next time. God bless you guys. Keep banging your heads, folks. Keep metal music alive.